Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. This is part 2 of our series on AgencyZoom. Back on today's show, we have Sid Rowe.
Hey everybody, welcome. Glad to be here.
And Brad Boldt.
Thanks, Kenny. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you both. If you missed part 1 of our series on AgencyZoom, cannot encourage you strongly enough to go back and give it a listen to hear more from Sid, hear more about AgencyZoom, and just a really great conversation overall, if I am allowed to say my biased opinion. For part 2, we're going to turn to a mutual customer of HawkSoft's and AgencyZoom's to learn about how AgencyZoom is used inside a real independent insurance agency. Our focus today is Brad Boldt, who is president of Amerigard Insurance Agency in Minnesota. Brad has been president of the agency for over 13 years, after a slightly shorter period of time as a producer within the agency. He got his start back in 1999 as a captive agent with Farmers Insurance. And that means, if my math holds out, that Brad had his 25th anniversary in our industry this year.
Crazy.
Amerigard Insurance Agency has been with HawkSoft since 2021 and has been with AgencyZoom for a few more years, starting with them in 2018, which we were talking before we hit record that Brad, you would get called an early adopter with AgencyZoom. I think being in 2018 means you definitely were an early adopter in their timeline. Brad completes a bonus aspect of this series on AgencyZoom. Both Brad and Sid are two of the touchstone inspirations for our podcast, and why we started this. Brad has a great podcast, Agent to Owners, and he does these amazing interviews with independent insurance agents and agencies on how they become bigger, better, and stronger. Slightly biased, I was a guest back in August last year. And it was honestly a pretty special experience. And it taught me really firsthand how to conduct interviews. I think Brad is one of the best in the business at giving and conducting interviews. So I'm going to do my best impression of him. And I definitely want our listeners to go check out his show, because I think it is a really strong example of how to really meaningfully engage with an interview guest and an audience and ask thought-provoking questions. Brad, I hope you don't mind me gushing a little. I really do
I'm
think
loving it. Keep it going.
Okay. Much like for Sid in part 1, if I don't stop myself from gushing, we'll just burn the entire runtime on this. So I want to dive into questions, but I am grateful that you are both here.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, Kenny. I truly appreciate it.
We ask each mutual customer the same 5 questions, just because we want to be able to provide a consistent perspective on the partners that we talk about in our series. And so fans of the show will know where we start, and that is with the story about the agency we're talking with and the agent giving their perspective, because we like to give a foundation in who they are, where they're coming from, and what type of business they have while they're using the partner. So, Brad, I would love if you could give us the story of yourself in insurance and Amerigard Insurance Agency. How long have you been in business? How many people work at the agency? Do you have a specialization? And then I have a follow-up question after that.
Yeah. Like you said, I've this is my 25th year in the business. 25 really, really fast years. I learned that right away, that time goes really quick in this position. The weeks just fly by. So 25 years, it's hard to believe. As you referenced, I started out as a farmer's agent. Was a farmer's agent for just under 9 years before I decided I didn't want to be a captive agent anymore and wanted to go independent. So I found Amerigard. It was local to me, and there was another farmer's agent that had joined that group, and instantly just fell in love with it all over again. Insurance business was fun again. And it seemed like, I was working with insurance companies that wanted to write business, that wanted to work with you. And you just didn't have the bureaucracy that you dealt with so much in the captive world. So I just absolutely fell in love with the independent world. That was in about 2007. And in 2010, I learned of an opportunity to buy out the agency. And and then April 1st, 2011, I was able to finalize the purchase of Amerigard, which was a tremendous learning experience. Buying it from a family member
Hmm.
of someone who founded this agency, and just kind of learned what that was like to go through the sale of an agency and how to value an agency. Is a very, very difficult process. And I think at that time, or at least we weren't privy to it, all the information that's out there now on how to value an agency, and methods, even funding. But now I'll tell you a little bit about Amerigard. We are primarily a personal lines shop. We're probably about 85% personal, and about 15 commercial. Although we seem to be growing more small commercial as of late. We've just been writing a lot of good, I would say, what I would categorize as small businesses, and I love it. I love working with businesses.
Hmm.
We have 9 on our team, what is I call on my team, and then we also have a network of 7 agents that have an agreement with Amerigard.
Oh, excellent.
So my main function now, I've been working hard to just be this owner manager of Amerigard, and business owner, and I truly love this position. I've kind of backed out of the day to day, and hired people to handle the day to day operations, handle production, and I'm just overseeing coaching, acting as a therapist. Whatever it takes, and I really love this position of just really coaching a team. So it's something I could do for a long time. I think just because it's just a passion of mine. Um, we don't. We've just really started in a niche, which is primarily long haul trucking, and just kind of got into that niche with one of our producers about a year ago. With just some other contracts we have. We're not deep into it, but we've been working at it, and I have a producer that he kind of fits that mold. Is just kind of has a little bit of background with trucking risks, and it's something he enjoys. It's always good to add something to what you're doing, change something up a little bit for a little bit of variety. So it's gone well. It's gone well so far.
Excellent. So, you're seeing your role as kind of this coach for the agency. Is that what at this point is getting you excited about working in insurance? Is there anything else that drives your engagement in the industry?
Yeah, I love being in the insurance business. Do I love insurance? Some days not. But I love being a business owner. And to
Mm.
me, where my passion really is building something, and building a team, to grow together. I've always been a person that's driven by growth.
Hmm.
And I mean, I am excited every day, to come to work, and I'm driven. I mean, most every day, I mean, 99 out of 100. Um, but so I have that drive, but now and that's the way I was as a producer too. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, most of us, most producers, most good producers are driven. That's in their nature. And so I mean, I was driven, and I was just a worker to grow, and
Hmm.
to watch this thing being built. And now it's I have more excitement from watching the team succeed and win. And I get it's very heartfelt to me. It's heartfelt for me to see our team grow together.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
actually we do something every afternoon called a 2 o'clock walk, where I just forced because we would I would casually say, take a break when you need a break, and nobody ever took a break. So at 2:00 every day, I just said, this is mandatory. And in fact, I want you to get away from your desk, get out of the office, go take a walk or just do something else, but look at your computer. The other day I snapped a picture because what our group really does is walk around the building.
Mm.
And so, I mean, it's very special to me to see this group walk together, talk, bond together. I mean, it's very sometimes I get emotional about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so unique, and that's really what you want. We have buzzwords of culture and this and that, and it's easy to say, harder to do, but to see it
Mhm.
actually take place. And this is a group of people that would never be together if they didn't work together. I mean, so it's
Yeah.
just I absolutely love that piece of it. So that's what gets me excited is it's just building a group, building a team, and
Yeah.
building this business.
So we work in a service business, so culture, the buzzword, really important. I'm curious, what's your biggest driver of a great culture? It sounds like you have a great culture where people love coming to work. There's good work-life balance. There's good camaraderie. How do you get there? And what were some of the challenges you faced on the way?
Well, we had, in my opinion, we had no culture,
Mm.
a number of years back, and I wasn't trying. So the biggest I had to be intentional about it, just like you have to be intentional about everything you do, your process, and you have to go out of your way to, how do we get people to bond and to work as a team? And it's not just working side by side answering insurance questions. It's being intentional about and creating a forum for us to get personal to some
Mhm.
degree. So I've tried a number of different things. And part of it is, you know, this is a hard industry and it can be a very hard job. And especially now it's, we're in hard times. We're probably dealing with more unsatisfied customers and upset customers that their rates are going up. It can be a very hard day for our teams. And so I was intentional about taking time out and sometimes just talking about it. Um, we'll play a game like this afternoon. Matter of fact, about every 3 weeks we'll play a game together. This afternoon it's Jeopardy, and so we have we have a hybrid team where about four of us are in the office, and then I have a few remote, if three remote workers, and so that can be also a challenge too. It's been a challenge of how do I get our remote workers to feel a part of the team,
Mm.
and so we'll play Jeopardy today. We I do have something as far as I started almost 2 years ago. I I got this from Billy Wagner to kind of gamify some things to work together. So I created KPIs for everyone on our team, and we have quarterly goals. And if we meet these goals, then we have rewards, and some of those rewards include rotating half day off on Friday and a team party. And I'll have rewards for, a certain number of Google reviews for everybody. And I just, posted this morning on Facebook of our team party of we had a paint party.
Hmm.
We hired a virtual paint company so we could all paint, something together, which was and that's for me, I'm a terrible artist. So and I said to everybody, I'm like, hey, don't worry, I am gonna have the worst piece of art that you guys ever see. So I think that sort of thing has really just brought us close together.
Yeah.
So it's really just being intentional, sharing, um, opening up. I've also instituted things of just we talk about team wins. We talk about um, shout outs, recognizing when someone else does something really good or handled a difficult call or left a
Mm.
really good note in our system. try to create a culture where we notice the positives.
Yeah.
So I think those things all put together have really contributed to just building a smaller team. And I hear our team talk about a team. I hear our team talk about being on a team and working together. And I meet with, I do one-on-ones with our group on a regular basis. And then quarterly, I'll go through a system of questions. What are we doing well? What should we stop doing? Where do we need improvement? That sort of thing. And about half the group said in our last meetings just a few weeks ago is that I think we work as a team really well.
Mm.
And I mean, like I said, it's just heartwarming to me,
That's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
to hear that. So yeah, sorry, I think I went off on a tangent there, and I
No,
don't know if I answered your question.
In the best way. In the best way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Two things, maybe two buttons on that. At HawkSoft, I am part of our marketing department, and we burn 60 to 90 minutes every Monday on non-work in our check-ins. We have a team meeting, and it's, what did you do this weekend? What movies did you watch? What did you do with your families? And I think that so often we start to obfuscate the person from the worker. And when you remove that person from the role, and if I was just director of partner integrations and all I did was agreements and API specs and all this stuff day in, day out, it starts to feel very hollow. But when you take the time and you say, like, this is as valuable to the process as the actual task at hand, I think there's a big thing there. Yeah, and I forgot what my second button was, but actually, it's someone else's quote. Paul Hawkins says it a lot. The statement that happy people are not grateful, grateful people are happy. Where it's this internally at HawkSoft, we have this concept of an attitude for gratitude, where we do what we can authentically to say thank you and express our gratitude. It's why with our customers we tend to celebrate Thanksgiving a lot harder than the winter holidays. I guess Thanksgiving kind of falls near that, but we tend to send out thank you cards to our customers at Thanksgiving as a sign of gratitude, just as a way to express that in our what we feel is an authentic way. Because I think it holds true, especially from my personal experience. I definitely, if I'm grumpy, I'll sit down and try to think about, like, what type of gratitude do I have for the people in my life, because that it kind of helps course correct my thought process.
Yeah.
I could stay on this topic the entire episode, but folks are likely tuning in to hear a little bit about AgencyZoom, and I want to do justice to Sid and the team at AgencyZoom. So, Brad, you established you were an early adopter. You've had AgencyZoom for a number of years now. I want to go back to 2018, and I would love to know, what were you looking for when you first encountered AgencyZoom?
Yeah, really, it was just a sales pipeline. I was looking for something to streamline our sales process, and it just seemed like a perfect fit. As I mentioned, I'd met Mo, and he walked through. I said, "This is perfect. This is everything we're looking for." And then from there, it's been really fun to kind of grow with it and use it as a CRM, which, truth be told, in 2018, if you asked me what a CRM was, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you. Frighteningly, I think there's still a lot of insurance agencies that still don't know what a CRM is.
Brad, can you try to tackle that big, hairy, audacious goal? How would you define a CRM?
Simply put, it is a tool for us to communicate with our customers. And that's what it's been fun to have that morph into. Is, yes, it started out as a sales pipeline, and we've grown with it. And we still have a lot of room to grow, which is fun. But what we've added to is it basically kicks off the initial interaction for most of our proactive processes,
Mm.
whether that's cross-selling customers, our renewal process, both for personal and commercial. It is that's where we handle our contact points throughout the year. We do so many things with it. It's such a valuable tool to us.
So you came in looking for a sales pipeline tool. Does that mean in 2018, Amerigard did you feel like the sales process wasn't consistent enough? Did you feel like you just weren't getting the volume you needed? What was that pain point that brought you to the sales pipeline?
Well, I mean, to be honest, there was no structure to it.
Mm.
I mean, it was as bad as we had paper leads in a drawer, that
Mm.
we'd pull out and say, okay, it's time for me to do my prospecting now, and making a little note alongside that form to say, yep, left a message today for Carl and emailed. And I also wanted a way, one, to streamline that process, to have it in front of me that I could see it. And as I was morphing from a producer more so an owner, I wanted to see our producers production, where their
Mm.
sales were, what their process was. We just didn't have, I didn't have any way of tracking. I didn't have any
Gotcha.
way of tracking where are we getting business from.
Hmm.
um you know how much are we writing a month, and with our AMS at the time, if it was available, I didn't know how to find it, any type
Hmm.
of sales information. So this was a way for me to keep better track of our prospects, and our producers' prospects as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Um, I want to expand out a bit, or not necessarily expand it. I want to focus in actually, because I want to get to some nuts and bolts about AgencyZoom. And you've had them for 6+ years at this point, and as you said, started really on the sales pipeline refinement piece of it, but have really started to embrace the full platform for its power as a CRM, its power for sales and marketing automation. But if you had to like quantify kind of like the feature that you really love, or the workflow that it enables for you, what can Amerigard do now with Agency Zoom that you couldn't do before you had it?
What we can do now that we weren't doing before, whether it was available or not, I don't know, is really the automated pieces of it, where everything from our sales process, and even our, because I mentioned our other customer contact processes, starts in AgencyZoom. We get a lot of business from Google Ads, and so we've been able to streamline our process, that if someone fills out our short contact gravity form, um, that automatically goes into AgencyZoom. We don't even have to add it on there. Once it's put in there, the prospect is automatically texted, and if they opt into texting, and emailed. And with that, we use Salt to collect quoting information. In that text and email is that form to say, whatever, thank you for, filling out our form, requesting a quote from our agency. If you'd like to get, the quickest way we can get started on this process, fill out this form. I would say it's about half the amount of time that someone fills out this form. We haven't even lifted a finger yet.
Mm.
And so to be able to, basically quote someone's business without even talking to them, and you're back to them within maybe an hour, pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So it starts, or our or our prospect contact starts there, and then it's also easy for us to assign over and assign a task. If I want to produce, even if it's an account manager on my team, to say, hey, reach out to Bev. We haven't heard back from her yet. I can create a task. I can easily do this. We can easily communicate in this system. I can track to see where our prospects are. It's actually helped me train, some of our producers, maybe on, because, once it's connected to our email. So our emails that we send out sit right there in AgencyZoom. I can see in one platform kind of the communication, what's being said. It's provided me a way to be able to, do a little bit of coaching and suggesting from that perspective. So I would say the automation that we've been able to develop, it's that's been the biggest game changer for us with AgencyZoom.
Thank you, Sid. Does that square with your experience with people? Is automation the thing that keeps folks engaged with AgencyZoom?
Oh yeah, big time. And automation is kind of a nebulous term at this point. When I talked to my dad about getting on AgencyZoom initially a year or so ago, he said, "No, I'm already automated, Sid. I don't. We're good." Right? He thought having an agency management system was automation. So when Brad says automation, what he means is automated communication, which is something that your AMS doesn't do, and automated task reminders. So, a lot of times what ends up happening both in the sales and service realms is, they keep a relative, if you ask a salesperson, like, oh, okay, how's it going, right? Macro wise, oh, yeah, it's going well. But the micro actions that they have to take are where things drop. Remembering to call someone that morning when they get in, remembering to follow up with an email because you sent a proposal and did we actually get it back? Those little nudges, um, sometimes the system takes care of it and you automate the email or text. Sometimes you set up a task to, do a check-in or follow through or whatever it might be. So the system, it acts as a guide, like a Sherpa almost, right? Both for the customer and for the team member. Okay, but Brad, you brought up a really interesting point. I've gotten some pushback recently on people using digital forms. Agents have told me, oh, no, we don't use digital forms because people don't fill them out. And you just said that roughly, rough numbers, 50% of the time, you're getting people to fill that form out. Is that, I mean, would you stand by that number about 50, half the time people are going to fill the form out? And then do they, with Salt is an interesting partner because their UX is unmatched. This is a beautiful, streamlined user experience. So just curious, if you could dive into that, it'd be great.
Yeah, if it's about 50%, I don't have the numbers. It's fairly often. I'm surprised at it because, and I love it every time that I see it. Now you're making me question. Yeah, we'll call it between, this is a big number. We'll call, even if it's 30% of the time, we'll call it between 30 and 50 because it's quite a bit.
And I think what Salt does well, if I remember back to seeing their solution a few months ago, I think they collect the contact info up front. And so let's say it almost acts as a e-commerce or shopping cart like experience where once you've got that contact info, let's say there's 10 more fields you have to fill out. If you only fill out 5 of them and don't finish the form, Brad, will still have those 5 fields. So yeah, maybe 30 to 50% of the time, people will fill out the whole form, but then another 10% or 20%, they're filling out half of it. And at least you have something to go off of when you're reaching out to them.
Yeah, so. Correct. Yeah, and they have an easy system too. We won't go too far down the Salt road, but yeah, they just have an easy system of when someone doesn't complete the form, then Salt will send them reminders to fill
Mhm.
it out. I think they send them at least 3. So yeah, I've been very happy with their program.
Yeah, they're friends of HawkSoft, working down the path on the partner side of that. Great team over there at Salt. And this conversation will bump them to the top of my list to make sure that um, we continue down that path. Um, in part one, we put Sid in the hot seat and asked for her opinion on, what's maybe the more difficult side of working with insurance agents. And, this podcast is meant to be a dialogue between technology partners, service providers, and independent agents. And so, in fair play, we're gonna swap seats. And I have a similar question for Brad about AgencyZoom. And I always like to put this caveat out there: price is going to be the easiest answer to this question. And if I was asking somebody about HawkSoft, they'd say price. If I was asking somebody about their car insurance, they'd say price. Um, so we're going to take price off the table because that's the easy out. And then the other thing that I always like to put forward is you can definitely talk about the relationship between HawkSoft and AgencyZoom in answering this question. I do not shy away from feedback. Honestly, it helps me advocate in roadmap meetings when I have to put forward some of the things that our customers are saying. So, Brad, from the safety of being a time zone away from Sid, what is one thing? What is one thing you would change about AgencyZoom if you could?
Yeah, for me, and as I mentioned to you, Kenny, I've been fortunate to hire someone on my team that is very tech savvy, who handles most of our um, AgencyZoom development. So I'm not in it nearly as much as I was. The first thing that comes to mind was their customer support, and which early on, as I referenced, and it was a much smaller company. Yeah, I was getting some pretty good attention. I mean, like I said, I had one-on-one meetings with Mo, and he was like, "Yeah, schedule anytime." Um, and so we would kind of walk me through. I mean, just super helpful. So obviously, you're not going to have the support of the co-founder, for the life of the company. So what my experience was, and this is what a lot of most tech companies are, that you go through their chat support, and it's here, read this article, watch this video. As I was kind of mentioning to you before the call, I'm a person that tries to figure things out, and so I'm not going to reach out to someone unless I've at least put a little effort into it. So my experience has been, it's that it can be hard to get support now, and I'm not sure if that's even fair, to be honest, because it's been a while since I've tried to change something in AgencyZoom. But my feeling was that I mean, it was really, really hard to get some support. And a lot of times, no, there's not an article, there's not a video that answers my question. And if you could just show me where this is, it could probably be a 3-minute conversation. We go on with our day. The other comment, and could be a user issue, is when we were developing our templates, I found the platform of the templates kind of hard to work on, hard to um, format images in. And as my office support Dale would say, um, he was really good in figuring how things looked mobile
Hmm.
and how things looked in dark mode, which was, I never would have thought of that. But I mean, that's how detailed he is. He really, really struggled with some of those things. And I think it's after you figure out how things work, you can do it. But I know that's was a um, concern of his, or frustration of his.
Yeah.
And I can't speak to that very well. I don't know what type of platform it's on. I don't know, what a better option is. So those are the things that come to mind as far as an improvement. What I would say, the biggest issue that I have, and this isn't, I would say this is more of a HawkSoft thing than it is an AgencyZoom thing, or it is I think it's a HawkSoft thing, is the ability to push our information and our data from AgencyZoom to HawkSoft. It comes
Yeah.
out beautifully from HawkSoft to AgencyZoom, and doesn't go back in the other way. And Kenny, you've explained that to me before,
Yeah.
why, and for good reason, why you're take precautions, to allow information in. That would be a tremendous help, and I have learned that there is a way to kind of duct tape that together to be able to push information in.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to capture that information that we put in the AgencyZoom file, create a HawkSoft file, be able to push those notes into that customer file, that would be huge in the way of,
Yeah.
fewer duplication processes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I absolutely respect Mo Latif as the leader of the product for AgencyZoom, and he is very um, he's very careful about how AgencyZoom is developed, and it's a methodical approach that I respect, because he tries to avoid, Sid talked about in part one, this concept of technical debt. And he does a lot of very important due diligence to avoid technical debt. And so we've had a lot of conversations about the technology that exists today to maybe get a prospect that successfully is sold and tracked in AgencyZoom into HawkSoft. And we don't, HawkSoft does not have an API method to do that today. I'd say it's a 2025 item for us once we finish our migration to our new platform. Um, and I do mean this sincerely when I say that I respect Mo's business decision that using an older piece of technology when he knows the more contemporary method is coming, he'd rather just wait. And I respect that decision. Um, it keeps data from flowing back into HawkSoft. We do have write back with APIs. Brad made this great allusion in our pre-roll about it's not two-way API integration. It's about 1.5-way API integration, because log notes come back to HawkSoft. The documentation of what activities happen in AgencyZoom are documented into HawkSoft, and they're documented very well. We just can't capture via API the creation of a new client, the creation of a new policy. And a piece of that is our tech debt that we're paying down right now. A piece of that is just it being very new technology to HawkSoft, and um, we're a measured 4 times cut once company, and so we want to make sure that when PII is involved, when databases are involved, we do it the right way. Um, and so yes, it's an absolutely fair observation, and it's true for all of our API partners that today via the API, no one can create a client file inside HawkSoft. I do want to give a shout out to we have a partner, Lava Automation. They've solved this, not solved it. They have a method, and they're a good company. I don't say that just because they gave me a great hat. Also, they're an Oregon-based company too, so I have a lot of affection for them. But as part of their automation suite, they do have some automation where they can take an AgencyZoom, an event in AgencyZoom that would say like this needs to be a client file inside HawkSoft, and get it to HawkSoft. So there are those duct tape solutions. We absolutely want direct integration down the line. So that's a totally fair observation. And I think going back to your first point about support, and I'll definitely let Sid weigh in too, but I want to bring up this is one of those things. I started in HawkSoft in product support, and we'd have this saying like teach someone to fish, because it is, you can give them the
Yeah.
article, you can give them the fish, but some people want some hands-on attention. That is really hard at scale. um, I have gained so much grace and understanding for companies as they get bigger and bigger, and as their customer pool gets bigger and bigger. It's really hard to scale that support, and it's often a growing pain. And so I think that HawkSoft is experiencing it too. We do our best to always offer that hands-on support, but I'll tell you, if there we try, we've implemented chat support. It's a live person behind the chat, but we try to meet people where they're at, and if someone can be helped with a video, that helps us a ton. But we
Right.
do recognize that it's takes all kinds. People learn in different ways. So I think it's a matter of scale, and I have all the confidence that AgencyZoom will
Yeah.
um, tackle that for sure.
Number one, it sounds like the bar was high. If Mo was in direct contact with you, that's a tough situation to replicate, to Kenny's point, at scale. That said, I apologize for the any experiences that you guys might have had that weren't up to par. And what I'm going to do is send this episode to our chief customer success officer and have him take a listen to it. To Kenny's point, it is difficult to figure out how to give that one-on-one white glove at the size of
Yeah.
that Vertafore is at.
You can't.
Well, I don't like the word possible is in the word impossible, right? So like if there's a will, there's a way. But people challenging the status quo and asking us to step up is always that's the way we get better. So I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
As always.
This brings us to the last question I have for you, Brad. And much in part one, we end with an upswing. We've talked a lot about how Amerigard uses AgencyZoom and the agency, how your experience has been working with them over the last 6 years, how it's benefited your agency and improved your sales process and all of that. I would love to know, how would you describe, inclusive of all of our past conversation, how would you describe the value that AgencyZoom brings to your agency?
For us, it's our most valuable tool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we use AgencyZoom more than anything else, and it is it's the backbone of where all of our processes start. And I like to play offense, rather than defense, in our agency, and not just with our prospecting, but with our customers. And so AgencyZoom has enabled us to play offense, and it's by automating a lot of these processes, it's made us more efficient and enabled us to do way more. And it's also just kind of created a roadmap with how we communicate with our customers. So as an agency owner, and for our producers, it's been huge. So when we're able to really have these two, AgencyZoom and HawkSoft, integrated together, and when they're really able to talk to each other, I feel like they're in a relationship, but only HawkSoft gets to talk right now.
Sure.
So when they're really able to communicate, it's just going to be that, because I mean, it's all of our goals to avoid duplication, to
Mm-hmm.
get these systems to talk to each other, and streamline our process and make us more efficient. So AgencyZoom makes us more efficient than any other tech that we use, and there's not even anything close. So it's our most valuable tool.
Yeah. And honestly, I love to hear that, and I definitely I I'm not really concerned, but I'm slightly concerned about our sales team listening to this call. But I want them to hear it, because I think it helps us understand holistically an agency's tech stack. And me hearing that, I'm like, I love this. I support that. I think whatever route to success an agency needs, um, I want to be in full support of that. To the credit of our sales team, we definitely have told agencies, you don't need HawkSoft, you need something else. And so we support that holistically too. So it doesn't really bother me to hear you say that, as listeners might be like, oh, I can't believe that Brad would say that on a HawkSoft podcast. But I was like, no, that's the truth. We're here to be transparent and open about the realities of technology and agencies. Are we going to send you a smaller gift basket? Of course, but it's okay. I appreciate you saying that, because I think it is valuable perspective and insight into how agencies are operating out there in the world. Um, I am so grateful for both of your times over the last 2 episodes. We've gone long. I'm grateful to the listeners for tuning into both of these kind of extra long episodes that we've released here. Um, as I've mentioned in the introductions to both episodes, both Sid's and Brad's efforts in communicating about agencies and communicating about technology were huge touchstones for the creation of the Insurance Perspectives podcast. It was such a boon to myself and to Jeff White, our producer, to get you both on the same episode. Honestly, when we triangulated the fact that Brad had AgencyZoom and Sid was put forward as the AgencyZoom rep, we're just like, we got to move heaven and earth to make this happen, to get you both on here, because sincerely, I mean this, you guys are two of the best. This conversation, both conversations in part 1 and part 2, have meant so much to me. I'm very grateful for both of your times.
Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure and honor. I enjoy every time I get to talk to you, Kenny. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was an absolute delight. So would come back anytime. And honestly, Kenny, now I might steal Brad for my podcast as well. So thanks for
You should.
the push there too.
No, absolutely. And thank you, dear listener, for tuning into today's podcast and putting up with my sinus cold. For the best way to contact today's guests, click on the episode description or episode notes if you're on Apple Podcasts. I really encourage you to check out the Vertifor podcast and the Agents to Owner podcast. They are both great listens every time they come out. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.